In 2018, our research group started work on building knowledge of the exotic fly spotted-winged Drosophila, which is also known as Drosophila suzukii. This pest is becoming a pest of concern for berry and stone fruit industries around the world. Throughout this project, we've been working towards a goal of increasing preparedness of our plant industries for a possible incursion of spotted wing, as well as increasing our capability to respond to a detection should one occur. The research team has been collecting information and knowledge on surveillance and control methods, and has also been developing models which will help us predict how well Australian regions and conditions will support spotted-winged Drosophila, and this will give us an idea on how far this pest could spread and establish. Educating potentially affected industries has also been a really crucial part of the project, because it will be critical if we're going to achieve early detection of spotted wing and also allow us to respond to this pest should it arrive. This video tutorial has been developed to educate you, your colleagues or your students on the importance about spotted wing. This research has been a collaborative effort between Plant Health Australia, Plant and Food Research New Zealand and CSER, and has been made possible with funding from Hort Innovation, using the strawberry, raspberry, cherry, blackberry and summer fruit research and development levies, and also contributions from the Australian Government.
In the previous talks, we discussed the spread, establishment and impact potential of spotted-winged Drosophila in Australia in the case that it makes it into Australia. In this talk, we will look at the potential pathways into Australia, which will help us reduce the risk of incursion and increase the chances of early detection. Globally, the consumption of plant-derived goods represents a major pathway for pest introductions. An estimated 87% of interceptions at the US border between 1984 and 2000 were associated with consumable goods such as fresh fruit and vegetables. Indeed, human-mediated spread of pests is emerging as a major dispersal mechanism in modern biological invasions. Spotted-winged Drosophila is no exception, with the movement of plant products destined for human consumption playing an important role in its global invasion. Overseas, the global spread of spotted-winged Drosophila has been traced back to its origin countries using the unique genetic signature of different populations across the world. In a study by Fremu et al. 2017, Southeast China and Hawaii together were identified as the most likely sources of multiple incursions into Western North America, which then in turn served as source populations for incursions into Eastern North America. The most probable source of European populations was Northeast China, with some evidence of limited gene flow from the eastern US. In both cases, after the initial incursion, spread occurred rapidly throughout the continent, suggesting that pre-border security is an essential component in minimizing the risk of spread and establishment to other countries. This requires the identification and prioritized management of high-risk pathways for preventative measures and appropriate allocation of surveillance resources for early detection and preparedness. The high rate of spread also points to the role of human-mediated dispersal in domestic spread following initial establishment. Spotted-winged Drosophila has expanded its international range to a large number of exporting countries, which notably includes the United States, most countries in Europe, China, Brazil, Argentina, Canada, Japan, Korea, Myanmar, India, and Thailand. Australia's biosecurity obligations under the International Plant Protection Convention and the International Standards for Phytosanitary Measures led to a risk analysis being conducted by Australia's Department of Agriculture in 2013, which identified high-risk pathways and led to a revision of restrictions and phytosanitary requirements for imported commodities associated with the transport of spotted-winged Drosophila. Among the highest risk pathways identified were caneberries, cherries, stone fruit, strawberries, blueberries, and mulberries. The risk of movement of cut flowers was also considered, which was determined to be extremely low risk. To mitigate these risks, there are a range of restrictions that vary across different commodities, but some common requirements are that imported fruit is inspected offshore and found to be free of live insects, disease symptoms, seed, soil, and other debris, certified free from biosecurity pests, cold treated at 0 degrees or below for 10 or 14 days, or -5 degrees for 6 days, fumigated with methyl bromide or phosphine. Despite these important mitigation procedures, import risks will never be zero. In 2019, a detection of spotted-winged Drosophila was made at the New Zealand border in fresh oranges imported from the United States, which was luckily intercepted. This was surprising as citrus is a low-risk host that can only support development of spotted-winged Drosophila when the skin is damaged or the fruit is overripe. Australia currently rejects any consignments of citrus where split or damaged fruit are detected on inspection. In Australia, despite oranges being a very low-risk host fruit, it is imported at very high volumes. This plot represents the mean annual import volume of commodities from countries with spotted-winged Drosophila confirmed, which are represented by different colours. The United States accounts for most of these imports as shown by the orange areas on this plot. We can see that if summed across imported citrus categories of oranges, lemons, limes, and mandarins, we see the largest imported commodity by volume is citrus. Other high-risk commodities identified in the pest risk analysis are imported at much lower quantities from countries known to have spotted-winged Drosophila. These include nectarines and peaches, cherries, plums, strawberries, and blueberries. But two other low-risk commodity groups that are imported at very high volumes are table grapes from the United States and kiwi fruit from Italy. If we look at how these import volumes have changed over time, we firstly see there is a lot of variation across years, but that imported strawberries have been decreasing sharply, and fresh flowers have begun to decrease in recent years. Import volumes of other commodities appear to be increasing, such as blueberries and table grapes. Imported produce fills gaps in domestic supply, so there are strong seasonality patterns in imports. New Zealand is included in these plots despite being free of spotted-winged Drosophila, as it is a large supplier of Australian imported fruit, as shown by the pink line. These seasonal trends suggest that significant imports of fruit from countries with spotted-winged Drosophila will occur in Australia's winter and spring seasons. In addition to import volumes and seasonality, we can also look at the predicted environmental suitability for spotted-winged Drosophila in the agricultural regions of countries that export fresh fruit to Australia. This plot shows import volumes on the vertical axes against suitability on the horizontal axes. The host risk is shown by the different symbols as identified under the Department of Agriculture's pest risk analysis for spotted-winged Drosophila. In the right-hand side, we can see that kiwi fruit and rubus from France are imported at moderate volumes, but high risk in terms of predicted suitability for spotted-winged Drosophila at these locations. In the top, we see moderate predicted suitability, but high volumes of kiwi fruit from Italy, as well as American grapes, citrus, cherries, and plums. In terms of the precise destination these imports are arriving at in Australia, we were unable to access detailed data on the importing state and import country of origin. But if we include imports from all countries with or without spotted-winged Drosophila, we can see that the largest fruit importing state is New South Wales, followed by Victoria, Western Australia, and Queensland. Most of this volume is made up by citrus, kiwi fruit, and table grapes. These volumes correspond roughly with the human population in each state. If we put all of this together at a broad scale, the highest risk locations for an incursion will be in major ports of entries in our most populated states, during winter and spring when imported produce from countries with spotted-winged Drosophila is highest. This will help us target any surveillance and monitoring programs to support early detection in the event of an incursion. Once again, population density is likely to be a strong predictor of spotted-winged Drosophila incursion risk. It is important to note that we have focused on the import of fresh fruit here, which is likely to be one of the higher risk pathways for incursions of spotted-winged Drosophila. but due to the stringent biosecurity regulations and practices currently in place in Australia, risks are likely to be mitigated to a great degree, but will never be zero. To further decrease international pathways into Australia, stringent declaration requirements or restrictions are also in place on plant material carried by international passengers and posted mail pathways. Natural pathways of spread into Australia, for example through island hopping, are likely to be extremely low given Australia's natural geographic isolation and the low rates of natural spread estimated for flying adult flies. For an incursion pathway to eventuate, a chain of events must occur, each of which can be managed to reduce risks. These include infestation of fruit in the field, survival of post-harvest treatment, survival during transport, entry into new regions and countries, development through to adulthood for egg, larval, and pupal stages, exposure to a suitable feeding host, locating a male, and locating a suitable host for oviposition. The internationally significant pest spotted-winged Drosophila is currently not known to be present in Australia, but its establishment and spread would result in large impacts to Australian soft fruit production. Australia's Federal Department of Agriculture recently conducted an analysis of the quarantine risks associated with spotted-winged Drosophila, which identified several traded commodity groups that could serve as a potential pathway for spotted-winged Drosophila into Australia. Consequently, risk management procedures were recommended and adopted that required exporters to conform to additional area freedom and phytosanitary measures. To identify most likely entry points and to support early detection, we built on these past efforts with a quantitative analysis on the risk of trade pathways that utilizes the current global pest distribution, environmental suitability of import locations, and volumes of imported commodities. For exporting countries where spotted-winged Drosophila occurs, table grapes, oranges, and kiwi fruit constitute commodities imported in the largest volume. There were large differences in import volume between states, which corresponded roughly to human population size, i.e. Victoria and New South Wales were associated with the highest import volumes. Temporal trends across years in Australian import volumes highlighted increasing import volumes for several commodities, for example plums, fresh flowers, grapes and blueberries, with strawberry imports decreasing substantially. With the exception of citrus and kiwi fruit, which were mostly imported during summer, most commodities associated with spotted-winged Drosophila were imported in winter or displayed no obvious seasonal trend. Our analysis finds that some low host risk commodity groups are imported in much higher volumes than preferred hosts and may thus still pose import risks for spotted-winged Drosophila. The volume at which they are imported into different state-level jurisdictions, coupled with previous regional analysis on establishment and spread risks, suggests surveillance efforts may increase chances of early detection by prioritizing monitoring in winter-spring periods around ports of entry for Victoria, New South Wales, and Queensland.